You know your name says Maya, right, Paris?
I know. It's my sister's name. I don't know what happened.
I heard that she's working with you now.
Yes, she's my only employee.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's doing all the
Girl, you have an
social
employee.
media.
You have an employee.
Yeah.
So exciting. Let me I know Dell and Leon must be so proud of you.
Yes. Oh my God, they're like my family. They've been so supportive.
Love them. They're the best. People in yet? No.
Hey, hi everyone. We have 25 people. Oh, and it's going up. Hey everyone, when y'all enter, I want to know where you're coming from. So I'm over here in Boston. Let me just put that in the chat.
Boston.
Brooklyn. Ooh. I lived in Brooklyn.
I actually did not know that about you. When did you live in Brooklyn?
Yeah. When I went to Pace University in New York, and my dorm was in Brooklyn Heights. So I had to live there for a year. But I wanted to live on the main campus in Manhattan, but they had no room for me.
That's awesome.
But no regrets. Yeah. Oh, Brooklyn's
we see, I have Bed-Stuy in here, Miami, Beantown, DC. Oh God, we have all over the place. I love that. Any Cali people?
Bay Area.
Any Bay people? Seattle, Tampa, nice. Awesome.
All right. I'm not sure when I should start introducing myself.
Maybe like another minute or so. We'll give people another minute to join. I know I'm always late, so
yeah, same.
Story of my life. If you're new here, please let us know where you're calling in from. If you're just joining us, we have a bunch of people from all over the country, which is so exciting. Any international people? Look, I'm wondering about that.
Yeah. Oh, we have Canada. We have someone in Canada.
Nice. New York.
Yes.
Cool. A lot of East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think you can probably get started whenever you want, Paris.
Yeah. All right, y'all. So I am Paris. I'm creator of the hashtag Black Tech Twitter, founder of Black Tech Pipeline. Y'all can go to blacktechpipeline.com to learn more about the community, how to get involved, look at our resources, check out our job board, apply to be a candidate in our talent database so we can introduce you to some employers. But obviously, if you're here, you're trying to prep for the Amazon technical interview. And I'm very happy to be partnered with Outco because they're going to drop gems on y'all. You're going to get all of the details. So I hope you guys have your notepads out, whatever it is that you need. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass it off to Christina, who is with Outco, and she's going to tell y'all all about Outco, all about what you're in for tonight. And yeah, let's get started.
Thank you so much, Paris. And I'm so proud of you. So just so you guys know, my name's Christina. I am a career coach here at Outco. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But just for everyone in the room, I have known Paris for, gosh, how long now? I want to say like going on maybe 5 years.
It's been a while.
And I actually met Paris when she was first becoming an engineer. So this is super, super exciting just to see how much you have accomplished in this time. And now you have your own network of engineers that you're helping. So this is so awesome. Super inspiring. So a little bit about me. My name is Christina. I'm one of the career coaches at Outco. And today you have joined us because clearly you're interested in applying to Amazon, right? I'm curious, before I go into the presentation, put a yes in the chat if you've applied to Amazon before or interviewed at Amazon. Okay. Oh, someone said they have an interview tomorrow. Did I just read that? Wow. All right, so you are in the right place then. Oh, you're interviewing soon. Okay, cool. Awesome, awesome. So as I said before, today we'll be doing a deep dive into the Amazon interview process. I'm trying to get through as much as possible, so bear with me. And again, a little just background on me. My name's Christina Costa. I am the lead career coach at Outco. Prior to working at Outco, I have worked at several large companies like HubSpot and PayPal, as well as Drift. And I've worked in learning and development, diversity and inclusion, consulting, coaching, and also I do public speaking. So that's a little bit about me and my background. And what is Outco exactly, right? So to just get us grounded, I want you to know a little bit about what Outco is and what we're all about. So we offer a 4-week career accelerator program for job-seeking engineers like yourself. Not only do we provide computer science fundamentals training, whiteboarding, and algorithm practice, as well as dynamic programming, but we also offer a career program where we help you with your emotional intelligence, your communication skills, answering behavioral and situational questions, being able to negotiate your salary, all of these things that really help you in your job search. And we've worked with over 2,000 job-seeking engineers since 2015. So definitely look us up. Oh, I'm supposed to click through this, sorry. As you can see here, this is what we provide. And I actually want to do a quick poll. We're going to do a quick poll just to get a pulse check of the room. So if you can just take maybe the next 10 seconds and fill out the poll. We just want to know kind of what's the experience level in the room, right? How many years of experience as a software engineer do you have? Let's see. Most people have voted. Let's wait for a few more people. So I'm seeing a lot of people pretty new, 0 to 1 years. 53% of people in the room so far are pretty new to engineering. So welcome. This is awesome. This is exciting. I love seeing more people of color in engineering. This is great. All right, so I see here 52% of everyone in here is 0 to 1 years of engineering experience. So it's super exciting. Awesome. All right, and then I'll share the results. Cool, you can see some of the results now in front of you. Awesome. Okay. And so, as all of you know, Amazon's one of the top places, that every engineer wants to work at. It's one of the FANG companies, right? The Facebook, Amazon, the Apple, the Netflix, the Google, right? These are the companies that everybody wants to work at. And it looks like some of you have applied for Amazon before, and some of you are just interested in applying, right? This is super. I'm so happy that you're here because we're going to help you really, really nail that interview process. So overview for today's workshop is going to be application. We're going to talk about the application process, phone screen, a text screen, right? Which will actually go in more detail at the second half of today's workshop. You'll be hearing from my colleague Desmond, who's one of our technical career coaches. He'll be walking you through the interview process, the technical interview process. And then we're going to talk a little bit about on-sites and offers, right? What that looks like. Oh, sorry, I just did one more poll. All right, so before we get into it, let us know, are you job seeking right now? Yes, no, maybe you're thinking about it soon. Maybe Amazon's just one of the many companies you want to apply to, right? So let us know. It looks like majority of people are 59%, 61% are job seeking. Cool. We're almost done. I think. Cool. So as you can see here, majority of you in here are job seeking. So this is awesome. I'm really happy to hear that. I hope that you get some gems and takeaways from today's workshop. All right. Cool. So before we dive in, I always like to engage the audience. So feel free to write in the chat or even unmute yourselves if you'd like to. But what has been your biggest roadblock on the job search so far? Right. This is a question that we really like to ask to our outcoders, or basically any engineer that's part of our program, because in order to be successful in your job search, you have to know what's blocking you, right? What is blocking you from being successful on the job search? What do you guys think? Not getting past the initial resume screening, okay. The leak code problems, okay, so the technical side. Skills, so the technical skills. COVID, That will definitely do it. Anything else? Sponsorship. Okay. Technical interviews. Okay, cool. Nepotism. So a lot of different things, right? And everybody has a different blocker, but this is answering questions. Yeah, right. Behavioral, situational questions, right? There's might be different things for everybody, but that's okay, because the good part is you're going to learn how to overcome them, right? Cool. I see behavior. I don't interview well. Cool. We'll talk more about that. So I have another check-in. If you had to interview at Amazon tomorrow, I saw somebody does have to interview tomorrow. How confident would you feel going into the process? A, B, or C? What do you guys think? Okay. Okay, I see some A's. Oh, A's is not good. Sorry. How about C's? Do I see any C's? B's. Okay, I see a lot of B's. I see a lot of maybes. Okay, I like that. I like that. And what about for question number 2? If an Amazon recruiter asked you right now, why are you interested in Amazon? Why do you want to work at Amazon? How confident would you feel answering that question? A. Okay, I see somebody with an A. Okay. Oh, C. I keep thinking A is good. C. Any C's? Okay, I see some C's. Cool. All right. That's probably one of the first questions you're going to get. So something to prepare for an Amazon interview, right? Why do you want to work here? Right? Cool. All right, thank you all for participating. So as I was preparing for this presentation, I definitely did some research, right? I looked through Amazon Careers website. I spoke to several Amazon software engineers. I reached out to a recruiter at Amazon and really worked to prioritize the information that we want to share with you. So a lot of this is coming directly from people who work at Amazon. So there's some tips and tricks for you guys. Again, Amazon is on a mission to be the Earth's most customer-centric company. They currently have over 6,200 software development jobs open. That's a lot of jobs. That's open positions in engineering at Amazon worldwide, right? So again, we're going to talk about the application, the phone screen process, text screen, which we'll do later with Desmond, and then the on-site and offer, right? It's pretty straightforward. So first and foremost, don't be intimidated by the job description you see online, right? If you are, you fell for it. It's meant to filter people out, right? Amazon has so many different types of roles and levels, which I'm sure you've seen throughout your search. There's software development level 1, 2, 3. So I want to give you a tip that if you get a no for a specific role or a tier, you can actually interview the next day for a different role, same tier or vice versa. So for example, if you interviewed for a software developer engineer position level 2 and got a no, the next day you can actually interview for software development position level 1, right? So it's always recommended that you aim higher. This is something that I exclusively learned from an Amazon engineer. So it's easy to be intimidated, but the interview will prepare you so much better. So if a no is given, it is common to get a direct offer for a lesser tier position, right? So if a no is extended, you can still interview for different roles or tiers immediately. You don't have to wait. So something to think about. Something also very important to know is that if you get an offer, you can actually join any other team who has the same opening available. There's other things to think about throughout the job search at Amazon. So as you can see here, if you're feeling like you're maybe not qualified for a role, I recommend that you aim high, right? So probably if you have some projects experience, some passion, and knowing the fact that Amazon is always hiring, right? These are all things that are working towards your favor, right? So don't feel if you get a no that you can't apply to any other role at Amazon. Cool. Now, the standard application process. There's 2 ways essentially of applying to Amazon, right? Number 1 is the standard application process, which is going on the website, applying on the site, submitting your resume via the job board, and a little less than 60% of all resumes are received in this way, right? Or the second way to apply to a job, which is my favorite way, and actually the only way I apply to jobs now, is through a referral, right? This is this is the fastest way to ensure a role or a job at Amazon. So this is where you can submit via an Amazon employee maybe a recruiter, right? Someone that you met that works at Amazon. Maybe you have a friend of a friend that works at Amazon, right? And this is where you can see that you are 3 times more likely to get interviewed if you submit your application through a referral. It's actually about 60% of hires at Amazon are made through referrals. Right, that's a pretty large percentage, so something to think about. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how to get a referral because that's probably my favorite topic. So I'll move into that next. So let's talk about referrals. I want to hear from you guys in the chat. How do you get referrals, or how have you gotten a referral in the past? What have you done? What are some strategies you've done before to get a referral? Networking, okay. Ex-colleague, nice. These are all different ways that you can get referrals, right? Alumni, oh, I like that one. Tech events. These are all good ideas for everybody in the group right now to think about, right? These are things that you could potentially do and attend so that you can get more referrals. Or Rakita says, see what alumni works there. If you went to a big school, yep. LinkedIn message, LinkedIn connection, ding, 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 ding. Ruben just gave the best answer, right? We'll talk a little bit about what I mean by LinkedIn messages. So first and foremost, referrals. Amazon prioritizes referrals, right? The hiring manager is going to be more than happy to talk to you if someone on the team or someone they know trusts and vouches for you, right? For your experience and your skills. Again, 3 times more likely to get interviewed. So now I want to talk a little bit about the strategy so that you can get more referrals. So first and foremost, strategize, right? Want you to reverse recruit your way to Amazon. Reach out to your network. A lot of you wrote in network. Yes, right? Reach out to your network. And if you don't have a network that has someone that at Amazon, then create your own network. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Next, execute, right? The whole point of networking is you want to build meaningful connections, right? You're networking with people so that they can get to know you, understand your value, see what you can offer to the job, right? To the company. So that's the whole point of all this networking, is to have those informational interviews, right? Not necessarily a strict one-on-one interview, but an informational interview. Get to know each other, right? And prepare. Different companies, different people from companies that interview first, and then they're going to place you with a team, right? So a specific team at Amazon may reach out to you at some point too, if you're networking and putting yourself out there. Something to think about. So the reverse recruiting strategy. This is my favorite, and I'm always going to tell people, if you want to get into a company, you must know someone there. At the end of the day, people hire who they like, people hire who they know, right? No matter what industry you're in. So again, the goal here with the reverse recruiting strategy is to send an engaging message that will resonate with the person you're reaching out to, right? So for example, let's say we wanted to reach out to Christina. She is a recruiter at Amazon. I found her on LinkedIn randomly, right? You learn a little bit about her. She's in the Seattle area. Maybe you find something that you have in common with her, or maybe you just want to comment that she's been at Amazon for the past 5 years, and that's super impressive, right? So you want to do a little research, understand this person, get to know a little bit about them. You can research them on LinkedIn, you can Google them. At the end of the day, you can find information on people. It's the internet. Strategize, right? So think about, okay, what are things I can say to her that's really going to resonate in a message, right? I want to obviously also show my value. And then connect, right? Show genuine interest. Don't just send a recruiter your resume and say, hey, take a look at my resume. I want to apply for this job. But actually say, hey, something along the lines of, I really align with the product team at Amazon because X, Y, and Z. I see that you've been working there for the past 5 years and would love to hear about your experience working at that company. Do you have 20 minutes to chat in the next week or so? Right? You always want to make sure that you end with an ask, right? You want to make sure you ask if you can set up a time to connect. Do you have 20 minutes next week to chat? What is your availability in the next week or so, right? You just want to make sure that you make an ask, a clear call to action, right? That's going to be really, really helpful to make these genuine connections. Has people done this before where they just reach out to on LinkedIn to people they don't know? I'm curious. Have we done this before? Yeah, cool. See, one person. I do this all the time still, right? And as someone who does this all the time, if it comes from a genuine place, people can tell. But if it's a templated response, people can also tell, right? So make sure that you do not use a template where you're just copying and pasting, because recruiters, hiring managers, people can tell like that, right? Cool. All right. So that was a little bit about reverse recruiting, the application process. Now we're going to talk a little bit about resumes. Oh yeah, it works for internship positions. It works for anything. All right. So your resume, right? This is where we talk about the quality of a resume, because your resume is going to be passed on and assessed at every single level of the interview process at Amazon, which is a long process. So after the application, after the phone screen, after the tech screen, after the on-site, before the on-site, right? Before the committee meets to put together your offer, like all of these stages, they're going to be assessing your resume again, right? It's just something that they're going to continue looking at because there's so many people involved in the process, right? So your resume is really your source of truth, right, throughout the interview process. So it's so important for hiring managers and recruiters because they really need to review high-level qualifications, your high-level qualifications at every stage of the interview process. So again, for them, time is money, right? So they're checking your high-level qualifications all the time. And again, applies to every stage of the interview. So essentially the format you will want is to have a one-page resume, right? Anything more than a page is probably not going to be looked at. And I don't know if you all knew this, but recruiters spend an average of 7 seconds on a resume before they decide whether to move forward or not. 7 seconds, right? So you want to make sure that your resume is concise, clear, and that you have keywords that are easily searchable, right? If the role you're applying to requires you to have Python, React, C++, you should have those tech stacks somewhere in your resume if you really want to stand out for those, for the type of experience. So I'm going to show you, again, we also want to see action, results, and metrics, right? So we want to know if you worked at your last company, maybe you helped increase, customer usability by 20%, or maybe you helped increase revenue by $1 million. Whatever it is, you want to make sure that you're also showing the results that you had at the company you were at, right? That's going to be really important on your resume. I'm going to show you an example of a bad resume, right? So again, this resume is, not very clear what the skill sets are. It doesn't really give you, straightforward, this is exactly what the tech stack that I work with. If you even look at the projects, there's not a lot of metrics in there. It's a lot of language, right? A lot of paragraphs, right? So we want to make sure that you have your contact info, your technology and languages, right? Tech stack and languages up front and center, your professional experience, right? Your recent projects, your education, and any leadership awards and certifications, right? And just so you know, at Outco, we actually provide templates for your resumes, and we actually do resume workshops where we actually teach you how to build your own technical resume. And again, this same resume had 2 pages, right? It's way too long. It needs to be much more concise. And it even has, job experience from 8, 9 years ago that may not be relevant anymore, right? So the format here is not good. The skills are at the end, projects and professional experience are kind of hard to read. So we want to make sure we have everything really clear and concise. All right. So now we talked a little bit about the application and the resumes, and now we're going to talk a little bit more about the interview. So first and foremost, right, you have to make sure that your mindset is there, right? Motivation and confidence is going to be key during your interview process. So go into the interview with Amazon wants you there, right? They're trying to hire you. You are a problem solver that they're trying to hire, right? You're not someone begging for a job. You're someone who's qualified, you have the skill sets, and you're going to add value to their team. That's how you need to go into an interview, with that type of a mindset, right? So I want you to learn and be curious, right? You need to think big, right? Make sure you can communicate your value in an effective way, which that part is very, very important. And also you want to know that you can make decisions quickly, right? So you want to show a few different strengths throughout the interview process. You want to show that you're a collaborative team player, that you're innovative in nature, that you are, meet deadlines, that you are gritty, right? All these things you want to show during your interview when you answer these behavioral and situational questions. Now the technical piece, right? Again, Desmond's going to go into a little more detail, but essentially LeetCode medium problems is a minimum for the Amazon technical interview, right? So they'll be expected in the interviews for any software development engineer position at Amazon. So you can actually practice some of these LeetCode questions. I can actually share this in the chat later, but you can actually practice these questions, right, for yourself so you can feel more familiar and more comfortable with them. And here are a few more tips for the technical questions. Think out loud. And this is actually directly from an engineer that works at Amazon. So think out loud, right? Buy yourself time if needed. So restate the question. Ask the interviewer to repeat the question, right? You want to make sure you have a clear understanding of the question before you go ahead and answer anything. And it's okay to ask someone to repeat or clarify a question if you're a little confused. When you're given a problem, repeat and ensure you are clear and understanding of the input and output. What are they looking for in the results, right? You can also voice out different solutions, advantages, right? Ask if they understand. That's a great way to show that you are a team player as well, right? You can actually explain what it is that you're doing. You can pseudocode the steps required for the solution and voice your thoughts, right? Last but not least, always ask questions. It's very true. It's a very, very valid point. People love talking about themselves, so always ask people questions. Now, for the behavioral side, so interview questions, interviewers are going to ask you behavioral and situational questions, right? They want to understand how you will act when faced in different situations, whether that's conflict, whether that's teamwork, right? They're going to want to know how you can act in those situations. So to make sure that you have the best responses for these type of questions, you should use the STAR format. We'll talk a little bit about what is the STAR format. I'm sure many of you have heard of it before. So actually, no, I just gave it away. I was going to ask if you guys knew what it was, but just to give you a breakdown. So S stands for situation, right? This is where you want to describe a specific event or situation, not just a generalized statement, right? It needs to be very specific. Task, right? Provide a specific outline of your responsibilities regarding the situation. Action, describe the specific actions taken to deliver on this task. And result, provide specific measures or metrics on results achieved through the actions that you took, right? This is how you want to think and process when someone asks you a question like, tell me about a time that you faced conflict in the workplace, right? You'll want to think of a situation. Okay, maybe there was a time that you and your teammate, didn't meet a deadline, right? And it was because your teammate was, not very clear as to what his role was, so he didn't deliver what he was supposed to deliver. Then you can talk a little bit about, what it was that you took to rectify the situation. So I want to emphasize that for these types of behavioral questions, especially the questions where they're asking you, tell me about a time you failed, or tell me about a time you faced conflict, you really, really want to focus on the positive side. So what did you learn from that? And what are you going to do moving forward, right? Do not focus on the negative. Don't focus on the problem and what happened that was an issue. but really, really focus on, okay, this is what I learned from that situation, right? And you can use the STAR format to help you with that, the storytelling aspect of that response. Let's see. You should also be familiar with Amazon's 14 leadership principles, right? I would say at least know 5 or 6 of them if you're going to go into an interview at Amazon. There's a lot. These you can find online, but this is something to think about, right? Because some of the questions they're going to ask you are going to be specifically around their leadership principles. So you definitely want to make sure that you have multiple stories already that you thought of that you can use some of these leadership principles in, right? You can say you applied this leadership principle when you, whatever that story is, right? Cool. All right. Now we're going to go into quickly the phone screen. So generally this is going to be with a recruiter, right? After you've submitted your resume, but you got a referral, now you're getting your first phone screen with a recruiter. And usually it's 15 to 30 minutes, right? Non-technical, it's usually with, very general questions, why do you want to work at Amazon? What is your experience in X, Y, and Z tech stack, whatever it is, right? What percentage of your job now involves coding? Tell me about your most recent project. Tell me a little bit about yourself, right? Why are you the right person for this job? What's the hardest problem you've solved? Right? Ravi said, should we explicitly reference the principle in our answer? I would. I definitely would, right? Because that shows that you've done your homework. You know what their leadership principles are. Totally. All right. So again, the phone screen, right? Just remember when you're talking to a recruiter, be confident, right? Amazon is hiring aggressively. And if they see potential in you, they're going to move forward with you, right? They have plenty of budget to hire people. So recruiters, just want you to remind you all that recruiters make money from engineers that move forward in the interviews, right? They have a quota to meet, right? So they want you to get hired just as much as you want to get hired. So that's something I think a lot of engineers forget. And recruiters want you to get hired. They get paid when you get hired, right? So they want you to pass the interview process. But what it comes down to is what information you have equipped them with so that they can advocate for you, right? Making sure we're telling them the right information, how we show our value so that they can advocate for us to the hiring managers. These are some questions that you'll probably see on a phone screen. Tell me about a time you had multiple deliverables, right? What do you dislike about having a manager? Tell me about a time you had a conflict. Why do you want to work here? Cool. All right. And just so you know, generally in the phone screen process, they're trying to see these different parts, right? They're trying to determine, do you have the technical competence? Do you have general cognitive ability? Are you able to communicate? Can you work on a team? Do you have leadership potential, right? Is this maybe a job they can see you maybe leading a team in the future? What is your culture fit, right? Do you fit the culture that they're looking for? The leadership principles, do you exhibit any of those things, right? Essentially, the culture fit piece is, do we want to work with you? Right? Do we like you? That's really where the culture fit piece comes along. All right. Technical screen. Again, I'm not going to dive too deeply into this because I want to leave time for Desmond. I'll just show you very briefly. Essentially, it's 90 minutes, right? It's an online assessment with 2 technical questions, and you have 7 days to complete it. All right. I'll let Desmond talk a little bit more about that later. Let's see. So I want to make sure we have time. Gosh, I have so many things about the technical interview, right? So I guess the essential pieces here are in the technical interview piece, right? You want to make sure you're focusing on performance, right? You want to start with the best solution that comes to mind. You want to iterate from solution toward a better solution. And really talk through how you got to this solution, right? Sometimes, even if you get it wrong, if you were able to explain it in a cohesive way that makes sense and shows that you understand the material, that may be even more important than actually getting it right, right? And this is something I encounter a lot at Outco with engineers. They think that it's a test, right? And they have to get every single thing A+, so they're not going to get the role. But you'd be surprised if you're able to explain your thought process, how you got to that conclusion, even if it's not the right conclusion. If someone's able to kind of see the way you're thinking, they're able to determine if you understand the material or not, right? Cool. All right. This is what they're looking at for a technical screen, right? Did your code compile? Was it optimized? Were you easy to communicate with, right? How did you perform relative to others? Your resume, do you stand out from competing applicants, right? These are the things that they're going to be looking for throughout the entire interview process. And lastly, your on-site, right? Your on-site is going to be, it's going to be a long process, right? Usually 2 weeks from that point when you've submitted your technical assessment. Usually you'll have 4 hours with 4 people. So it's a pretty long interview process. 1 engineer, 1 hiring manager, and 2 engineers at the same level, right? This is what you can expect during the on-site at Amazon. You can see the technical sessions across 4 persons can be broken up into 3 technical questions and 1 systems design question. Things to think about. If you feel rusty with any of these things, you should be practicing, right? Oh, and then on-site continue, just so you can see. These are all different formats of the on-site as well, right? Someone asked if we're going to be sharing these slides. Yes, we can share these slides with you if it's helpful. Oh, how's on-site? So right now, on-sites are purely virtual. So it would be 4 hours of virtual interviewing. All right. And then last but not least, you have your decision, right? This is decided by a committee, and they will assess your analytical skills, coding skills, your communications, right? How did you perform in the behavioral and situational pieces, and your experience, your technical screen performance, as well as your phone screen performance and your resume. So all of these pieces are taken into consideration by the committee if they decide to extend an offer. Cool. All right. So again, to offer or reject, right? This is all going to come down to how did you score in all these different areas. Now, I hope that this was helpful. I hope you learned a lot of the material to help you get through the Amazon interview process. It's very long. Before I pass you on to Desmond to go in depth into an interview, technical interview question, to really walk you guys through an interview question and what that would look like, we do have a very quick 2-second poll that I want you guys to take because I want you guys to learn more about Outco and how we can support you on your job search, right? Throughout the 4-week program, as I mentioned before, we do a lot of technical training. So helping you with your whiteboarding, helping you with the algorithms and computer science fundamentals. And then in the career side of the program, I'm really helping you with your communications, right? How are you showing and demonstrating value? How are you growing your network, right? How are you standing out against all the other engineers applying to maybe the same position, right? How can you potentially have an edge over another engineer, right? How can you show that you're passionate and gritty and you deserve this role, right? In every role that you apply for. Okay. Somebody asked, what are these times on the East Coast? Oh, where are the times on the East Coast? So majority of our students are on the West Coast, but if you just add 3 hours, that's the East Coast time. So it would be 5 p.m. Pacific is 8 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific is 12:30 Eastern, right? And then 7 p.m. is a little bit late, that's 10 p.m. Eastern. Cool. Awesome. So take a second, finish that poll. And I hope that this was helpful. I will be sharing the slides with you, and I will let Desmond take it from here when he's ready.
Great. let's take a couple minute break before we get started here. What time is it right now? My clock has disappeared. Right now we got 6:10. Let's take like a 3-minute break and we'll get into the tech at 6:13.
Did I see someone had a question? Is it Jonathan? Jonathan, did you have a question? No? Okay. You're welcome, everybody. I'm going to add my LinkedIn too if you guys have further questions that you can reach me. Ravi, what is one final tip you can give me for my on-site tomorrow? It's an internship interview. Yeah, you're welcome. I hope this was helpful. What is one final tip? What is one final tip I can give you for tomorrow for your interview? Is there a specific question, Ravi, that you're like stumped on? You definitely want to make sure you can answer 3 really basic questions that they're going to ask. Number 1, tell me about yourself. That one's always going to be asked. And that's because they want to know your story, right? What motivates you? What drives you? What have you been working on lately? What value can you bring? These are all the things they want to see in your tell me about yourself response. Secondly, why do you want to work here? Right? Why do you want to work at Amazon? And don't just say the generic, because I like e-commerce, right? You want to make sure that you actually show why you want to work at Amazon. What is it about Amazon? Maybe there's something in the leadership principles that really aligns with you. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you just really want to work at one of the largest global companies because you love the mentorship opportunities. Whatever it is, just make sure you have a very specific reason and don't just say, because I like customer focused companies or something like that, right? Nothing too general. And then the last tip I would have for you, Ravi, is make sure you get a good night's rest and go in prepared and ready, and to show that you're really passionate, right? Show that you really, really want this and you're excited about this opportunity. That's something that, you can't fake that, right? You should have to show your excitement. People love to see that and they love to feel special and they want to feel like you really want to be here.
Great. Okay. That was our little break there. First off, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Desmond. I am one of the software engineers here at Outco. I am also a technical coach here, and I work on curriculum creation. Mainly, I focus within dynamic programming and do all the work for everything there. Okay, so let's get started here. Great. So before we even get into what this problem is asking us here or anything along those lines, first, let's take a step back and think about what a technical screen really is looking for here. A lot of the time, when we jump into these problems, we're like, oh, there's a hacker rank, it's just timed and we have to go as fast as we can and trying to get an answer. But for any of these types of problems, the number one thing we want to be thinking about is there is another person on the end of that screen. And so one of the main things they're really looking for here, without you just solving a problem, they're looking for how you're able to solve a problem rather than whether or not you can solve it. And they're looking for your communication skills. So on that note, never feel super stressed if you have no idea what's going on. Always feel okay to ask for a little help and try to work through that, because they always are looking more than anything for the way you think about a problem. They're not looking for whether or not you can get a specific answer to a specific thing. These are all just kind of benchmarks for how we want to tackle this here. Secondly, they're looking for your thought process, right? So how the heck do we actually want to tackle any given interview problem? And at Outco, we can break this down into 4 steps that we look at for any given problem. So let's just write those down just to think about that. Problem steps. Great. So our first step is going to be understanding the problem. That's the first thing we're going to want to do. Second thing, we're going to be looking at diagramming. Third thing, pseudocode. Yeah, like that. And then finally, we actually are able to code. So when we're thinking about each one of these steps, you know, code is all the way here at the bottom. That is actually like one of the less important things that we're actually trying to do here, because it's really focused on your actual progression through these problems. I mean, sure, your code actually needs to run and everything needs to actually work, but your code is kind of in your own thought process, the less effort that you're actually doing. The way we can break these down is, you know, step one, understand the problem. We'll go into the actual steps of that in a second. Diagramming is where after we understand the problem, it's all of our actual brain work. Most of our time is going to be spent in the diagramming, where we are figuring out actually how we want to tackle this problem when we're either like, you know, moving some pointers around an array or anything along those lines. One note with diagramming, oftentimes, you know, we would love to use our whiteboard or our paper or anything along those lines, but something you need to remember with any technical interview is that whatever code environment they've given you, that is all they're going to look at after the interview. So you want to try to do all of your diagramming actually in that coding environment so that they're able to look at that later and see what your thought process is later. And then we have pseudocode, which is taking our ideas of diagramming, how we've actually solved that problem, and trying to figure out how to put that in like CS logic, right? Where we're thinking, okay, we're moving through an array. How do we actually do that? Are we using a while loop? Are we using a for loop? Anything along those lines. And we're actually doing all that conversion there. Code is literally just asking us to put syntax to that pseudocode and to figure out exactly how everything is going to work there, but it's really just a syntax. With companies like Amazon here, you aren't able to have any autocomplete in your code. They have all that turned off in your coding environment. And so it's really a syntax memorization. In other companies, you won't even be in a coding environment. So it's very important to like separate these. I know oftentimes people try to like jump right from understanding the problem into our actual code. And so like the problem with that is it's not that we're like skipping these steps. We're kind of doing them all at the exact same time as we're actually coding all in our brain at once. And so it's like kind of ruining our process within the problem for our interviewer, but for ourselves, we're only working at like 40% power because we're trying to diagram and pseudocode in our head. So it's never a time saver to like skip those steps. They're great for showing your process, but more importantly, you're going 100% segmenting like each part of the problem into a smaller part there. Okay, so moving on to the actual problem that we are looking at here. So oftentimes you will get kind of a vague prompt because it, again, part of the problems are the actual communication element. And so it's going to be trying to figure out what this problem is actually asking us when we're thinking about understanding the problem. So let's see. Maximum paths in a binary tree. For our prompt here, given a binary tree, what is the maximum sum of a path? And so right here, we have some nice ASCII input diagramming exactly what this would look like, and then an output. So the first thing we want to do is make sure we understand this actual output here. Like, how the heck are we getting 42? So thinking about this problem right here, the way we could get 42 is if we start at this 15, move to the 20, and then from there, move to the 7, right? Because that's going to be 15 plus 20 plus 7. But our logic for this would only be right if we don't need to move through the root, right? We're just kind of segmenting this one small part of the tree. So it's important when we're in the understand the problem phase that we want to clarify any kind of edge cases or anything specific about the problem there. So we can ask like, do you need to go through the root? The answer to this is going to be no. Great. So we definitely understand this one specific input. But, we don't really know if this is going to be the same logic as we're doing anything else. So we're going to want to do our own input and verify our logic to make sure we're thinking about this correct. So right here, we can just copy and paste this and do a second input where, let's say we change this 10 to a 1. Now if we're changing this 10 to a 1, from my understanding, we would go 9, 1, 20, 15. So that's going to give us 10, 30, 45 for our output. And so one quick note here is we don't want to be asking to verify our ideas. Instead, we want to justify, right? We always want to be leading any question that we are being asked. So looking at this right here, I wouldn't go through this and say, hey, is this right? Is this 45? Instead, I want to say, looking at this example here, this would give us 45 and this is why. And if it was the type of interviewer that would give you hints, which 99% of the time they would, if they say your logic is wrong, this is when they would do it. And if they wouldn't say anything, they would also not say anything if you like asked for help individually. So the only difference here is going to be whether or not you're like doing something with confidence or not, and leading the question, or like trying something and asking and trying something and asking. Cool. So this is 45. We are good here. Now we have our 2 inputs done. The next thing we want to think about are any other edge cases we need. So one thing I would like to think about is, what if we just have like a single node here with -5 in it? What would be our output for that? And the question we need to know for that is, do we need to contain any, at least one element in our graph, in our tree? Do we need contain a node in our path? The answer here is going to be yes. So our output for this problem would be -5, sadly, instead of just 0 and skipping everything. And a quick clarification here. So with these questions, I am actually asking them, but there's a difference between that and like justifying this logic here, because this is information that we absolutely need, that there's no way to like figure out ourselves. Feel free always to ask as many questions about understanding the problem as you need, but just justify your logic rather than verify it. Cool. So we have our inputs. We have our edge cases here. What's the next thing we want to do for understanding the problem? The next thing we want to ask is going to be constraints. So when we're thinking about constraints, I know a lot of engineers are kind of scared of like, oh, trying to think about time complexity or trying to think about anything like that. And it should actually be the opposite. When we're given a time complexity, that is going to be one of the biggest hints towards what algorithm we're going to use. So say we're given like n log n, right? This isn't some spooky algorithm here of like, how the heck am I going to fit it in that? This is a weird time complexity. The toolbox of algorithms that I could use for this problem have now like shrunk massively. I know if I'm given like an n log n, I am probably going to do some kind of sorting, probably going to use some kind of merge sort or quick sort or something along those lines. So our time complexities are actually the biggest hint, because what we want to be thinking about here is looking at our problem, looking at what type of data structure it's using, and then thinking about what algorithms can I use for this given data structure here. So with this problem right here, our time complexity is just going to be O of n. So that's not going to be incredibly helpful for that. And our space complexity is also going to be O of n. But in general, that is always something we want to ask, because that is going to be one of the best tools we have of just like very quickly narrowing down what algorithm we want to use. So that's all we really want to think about for understanding the problem. Next up, we have our diagramming. So that's right when we're taking our actual ideas and figuring out like what the heck is going on. This is just as much our like scratch paper as it is the way that we're like trying to show our thoughts. So don't think of this as like figuring out an idea and then sharing that idea. With your diagramming, this is actually where you go through your own thought process. So looking at this example right here, let's think about the different ways that this problem can present themselves. Like, what cases do we have here? So if we're looking at this case, the original one given here, let's just think about the 20, right? If we're just thinking about this 20, I'll just get rid of the 9, pretend it's not there. In our current case, we go 15, 20, and 7. So what's going on there is that we're taking the left child, or the left branches, the middle, and then the right. So we can call this case right here left/right. So that would be one way we want to do it. When we're looking at this second case here, right, what's going on here? So if we're just thinking about the 20, we take the 1, so we're taking that root, and then we're taking that 15. So we'll call this root plus left. I don't know why I put slashes here, because we're doing both of them. And then finally, so yeah, this right here is when we're taking this path following 1, 20, and 15. Finally, our last case is going to be pretty much the same as the root plus left. We have a root plus right, which would be taking something on this side of the 20 as well. So looking at the 20, we're taking our root plus our right branch. Okay, so how the heck do we actually want to think about this? Well, if we're just looking at like the root plus left or the root plus right, all we're doing is from our individual spot, we are taking the maximum at each time and seeing what that total value is branching down. So looking at the root plus left or root plus right, what we're doing is like comparing the value here with a value right here that is smaller, and then picking that one, and then continuing to recurse down using something like a DFS, where we're just picking one at each point and then summing all of the maximum choices there. So that's going to be pretty simple. We can definitely do that. So the confusing thing here is this left plus right decision. Because now if we have that, we're not just taking the max of the left and the max of our right branches and like recursing down there, we're also comparing that to the max of our like parent branch. But when we're looking at the max of our parent branch, we need to know like the rest of the entire tree on this side. So if we're looking at our 20 and we want to decide if we are going to use our parent branch or not use our parent branch, we're going to say left, right, and 10 plus whatever's like recursed on the rest of the tree there. So that's actually going to be like impossible to do, because from every single point, you kind of need to recurse the rest of the tree to get those 3 decisions. So in conclusion here, we know that we're not going to be able to get this answer right here if our recursion is asking us at every individual point if we want to go for the root, left, or right. We know both of these are totally possible by just doing a normal DFS and taking the maximum at each point. So how do we do this part here? So the way we want to think about this here is that even though when we're recursing, we can't actually get this answer if we're trying to compare all 3 and like return that value, what we can do is whenever we're taking our root plus left or root plus right, we're actually getting this value right here. Not in our return statement, but we have all the information at our fingertips, right? Because we're taking the max of this side plus the max of this side, and instead of using this root, we could just add these two and that current value that we're looking at there. So gathering from all of this, what we know is that we want to be using helper method recursion, because we aren't going to be able to do like everything at once there. We're not going to be able to return that value that was originally asked from us, right? The output for this problem is originally going to be that max path, but we understand from this case right here that we're not going to be able to answer that at every individual return statement. But we have all the information we need. So what we can do is just have a global variable that keeps track of what that max sum is and replace it with this value if it is better, taking that left plus right instead. Great. So that's all we really need to do with diagramming here. We understand all of our different information that we want to be doing with our actual algorithm here. We haven't really completely converted that into full computer science logic here. Like, we're taking these max and left paths. How the heck do we actually do that, etc., etc. So this is where we'll move on to pseudocode. And we can do our pseudocode within our actual code itself, just using like a skeleton code with comments first. So the way we can do that is we'll just say class max path. And for that, we will have our class right in here. We'll say public int max path that takes in a tree node. Great. So when we're thinking about this right here, we know we're going to have this global variable max sum. So let's just have that there. So we'll have max sum, and we can just initialize that there. And then in our actual function, we're going to want to initialize our max sum and then call our helper method. So we have max sum, and our max sum here, we know from our edge cases here that it does need to contain at least one node in our path. So we can set our max sum to equal to the input that's given there. It's going to at least be our root node there. So max sum right here is going to be root dot value of root. This is for just doing pseudocode. Value of root. Great. And then after that, we want to call helper function. And then finally, return max sum. Great. So now let's start thinking about our helper function. So our helper function, what this is going to do is either is going to compute whether or not we want to do the root plus left or root plus right, just using a DFS, while also computing this value here and seeing if that's going to be better than our seeing if it's going to be better than our taking left or right instead, and updating our max path. So let's just code that out here. We'll make this private since it's a helper method, and we'll call this helper. And this right here will take in a tree node as well, and we'll just call that cur. Great. So let's think about what is actually going on here. First thing we want to do is our base case. Base case. Just like any type of tree function or recursion in general, our base case is actually going to be wanting to go like not stopping at the node, at the leaves, but instead going one level farther down and ending when we have these nulls, right? And the reason for this is, one, from an algorithmic perspective, when we're thinking about like our base case versus our recursive cases, our base case is when we want to stop recursing, and our recursive cases is when we want to keep going. So if we're stopping at this point here, basically we aren't changing our like base case. Instead, we're kind of like starting to think about our recursive cases of saying like, hey, don't go down here because it's a node. Instead, we want to say always go down and stop when we've fallen off our tree. So our base case here is going to be if cur null return 0. Since again, we're summing up these maximums at any point going down our tree, we're going to just return 0 here, so it's not actually changing the value that's getting returned out. So we have that. Now let's think about our recursive cases. Our recursive cases are just going to be finding the max of going left and the max going right. So we will get max left and then we will do max right. So after we have these paths of going left and right, let's think about how we actually want to do this. So our max left here is going to be recursing to our left side. So we can call that, or let's see, is there anything else we can do there? Actually, we don't need to go left at all. And what I mean is not going right. Instead, I just mean stopping where we are. So if we think about a tree, like, I don't know, we have a 9 there. And on the left side here, it's just like a -10. Our best path going left is just not going anywhere at all, if this is going to be negative. So we know the worst possible scenario we have is going to be doing 0 instead. So we'll say that this is going to be the max of helper left of cur and 0. And then for our right, it's going to be this exact same idea, except going right. So that's getting us all the information we need of doing that max left and right. So here is where we can actually calculate this value of going left plus right. That's going to be our current node plus recursing left plus recursing right. So we'll say that is right left path. It's going to equal val of cur plus max right. Plus max left. Great. And then we can actually set our max sum there. So we'll say max sum equals max of whatever our current max sum is, and this left right path, right left path. And then finally, we can just do our normal recursion. So that's going to be return cur.val plus max of max left, comma max right. So we're either going to go for the left or the right side. So that's actually pretty much all we need with our pseudocode here. We understand the logic now. All we need to do is actually put syntax to this. So let's move on to that here. And we can just go line by line. So first thing, right, we want to initialize our max sum. We'll say int max sum right there. And then we can initialize it there. So one thing we have here in pseudocode is value of root. Tree nodes aren't something that are native to most languages. That's something that the interviewer would actually have to create. So you're going to want to ask how the tree node is actually going to work. That's something else we want to ask. And what they'll tell us is going to be tree node will have an int val, and then a tree node left, and a tree node right. So the way we actually want to go get the value of this is just going to be max sum equals root dot val. Great. And then we can just call our helper method. So we'll say helper of root. And then finally, we'll just return our max sum. Sum there. Great. So now let's move on to our helper method. First thing, our base case. If cur equals null, then we'll return 0. And then we can move on to our recursive cases. Our first one here is going to be max left. We need to initialize that. Equals math.max of calling our helper method, helper of cur.left and 0. And then that same logic for our right side. Cur.right. And then we can calculate that new path. which is going to look pretty similar to our pseudocode here. We'll say int, we'll just call it new path equals cur.val plus max right plus max left. And then we can update our max sum. This guy is called new path. And then finally, our return statement here. Return cur.val plus math.max of max left, comma, max right. Awesome. This is pretty much all we need for our code. One note to make here is it doesn't really look like we're ever updating our new path with that, well, it doesn't look like we're updating our max sum with this actual value here. But the way we want to think about that is when we're looking at our original tree, imagine that we had something above us here. When we go to this 10, that new path right here is actually representing that path that includes the root, right? We're starting at the 10 and we're going left plus that -10 plus the right side there. Great. So this is all we need for our code. So thankfully we have this main function already built out for us and our tree node here. They may or may not give you this. This could be where you would call it here and not actually be able to run your code. But they would have this for themselves to test. So it's good for you to test your code based off a main class, just so you can figure things out for yourself. And they have this pre-built out tree node as well. So let's see if this works. So what we currently have built out here is going to be our tree right here with the -10 root, with the 9 on one side, 20 on the other, and then 15 and 7. And we're just calling in our function. So let's check out if it runs. Ooh, what do we got going on here? Oh, that should be lowercase. Great, so we got 42. It absolutely works. Let's test this also from that other case right here, where we make our root a 1. So if we do that, we'll change this to a 1 and see if we get 45. Perfect. So everything works here. That's pretty much what you want to be going through as far as your Amazon Tech interview. Looks like we have some time for questions here. So looking at the question here. So yeah, it looks like we're not using the return value of our helper, but we actually are. What the return value is doing is helping us calculate that max left and max right, because those are actually going through our helper at each point. And even though we're getting those new max paths, we're still actually recursing for going either max left or max right. So like we're kind of calculating it within our function. Yeah, so we're on Amazon, you may or may not be able to run it. Like if it was a simpler problem, then you would be able to run it. But here, just with this question here, they would have to give out this like pre-made tree node question for this problem that we have this built out here. So it's kind of whether or not they're going to build that out first. But for simpler problems, they will let you run your code, but you'll have to create the main function and everything. So you should be able to test that out. Yeah. So let's see, looking more through questions here. Okay, I'm curious that you took more than 30 minutes knowing how to solve this problem well. Someone is facing it for the first time. How is it possible to solve in less than 40 minutes, sometimes spent in chit chat? So yeah, I mean, with this problem here, like a lot of this was going through the process and being very clear about that. This right here is a like LeetCode hard, so they would probably give you more than the half an hour. You usually have, 90 minutes for 2 questions, so that's going to be 45 minutes each on that. But this is one of the harder questions, so you would have like the larger chunk there. This isn't. Usually you want to think 30 minutes for a medium, 45 for a hard, something around those range. So the amount of time is just fine for this here. Great. I'm going to open up the floor for questions for either Christina or I, because we are good with this problem here. Let me post the actual link to this in the chat. Y'all can check it out whenever you want. Cool. Great. So it looks like we have about 15 minutes for questions. If you have shorter questions, just throw them in the chat. But if you have like longer questions and want to formulate your thought, I would put that in the Q&A section where we can get to those after a little bit of thought. Great.
Any questions, anybody, about what Desmond just reviewed, or anything about the interview process, or anything about Outco? Any questions, feel free to ask. Yeah. Now is the time.
Oh, let's see. I see one from Keith here. How important is it to learn data structure? Should it be before learning to code or while learning to code? Interesting question there. So like that data structure side is very much totally kind of more academic, totally for the coding interview. Like this stuff will come up actually, in the this will come up in the actual, day-to-day job, but it's really for interviews. But you're going to need these interviews to get a job. So they're kind of 2 separate things you want to be focusing on pretty much at the same time. How do you honestly start with LeetCode? It can be a bit overwhelming to start solving problems right away. So with LeetCode, they do have these great like explore sections where they have like 100 top easy questions, and going through that and going for a few of different algorithms there. But kind of the most important thing with LeetCode is that we are taking the time to really fight through these questions. It should never be like, oh, I'm fighting through it and then I'll look at the answer, because then you're just learning to memorize things. It's not really about how many LeetCode you solve. It's about whether or not you understand the underlying algorithm questions. Because, yeah, I often hear how many LeetCodes should we try to complete, but it's not about that. What it's about is like understanding and building those skills of solving these problems. It's less of a memorization game and much more of figuring out how we want to tackle anything thrown at us. Great.
I see one question in the Q&A. It says, how would you push back if your interviewer is trying to rush you? I know some interviewers enjoy the stress test interview. Alexandra, are you talking about the technical side, like solving a technical problem, or just in general?
They won't be able to speak.
Oh yeah, they can't answer that.
Yeah.
I'm a technical. Okay, that's for you, Desmond.
Yeah. So when they're like really trying to speed you up here, I think there's kind of 2 things about that. First, it is important to really show your process and stuff, but kind of end of the day, the interviewer is the one who is hiring you and is the one creating feedback. And so it really does have to be like whatever direction that they're going in, you try to figure out what's going on there. And adding to that, like anytime an interview gives you like a hint or says something about your algorithm, you're going to want to figure out like what these hints actually mean. Like that's the game in itself. Like it's figuring out what your interviewer is thinking about any individual problem, right? They always have some ideas of how you want to go with this and trying to figure out what they're looking for in you. So that's how I would go if I'm being kind of sped up, is have to go a little quicker, because that's what your interviewer is looking for there. So let's say you have 0 clue on how to approach a problem. What's the strategy? 2 things there. One, that's the situation we'd like to avoid being in, as far as taking all the time that we have. Usually, I've never seen a problem that it's like you're just floored with. The way that we build it up at Outco, and in general thinking about these problems, is you'll build up a toolbox of algorithms to use for a specific type of problem. So it's going to be what type of data structure we're using. What algorithms can we use from there? And so we'll always know where we want to start. If we get a little confused from there, it comes back to that idea of verifying our logic rather than justifying it. So you can ask your interviewer, like, I'm thinking if we're going in this direction, but here's the problems if I think about going in this direction. And kind of speaking like why some ideas you might have wouldn't work, and they might give you some ideas of other directions to go, rather than asking and saying, hey, look, I'm stuck. What do you think I should do? Instead, like, explain why your current ideas wouldn't work and see if they will help there. Let's see. Yeah. So it's definitely, you always want to keep that communication up and explain your thought process. So like when you're stuck, the worst thing that happens is you just sit there stuck for, the remaining of your interview. That's wasting your time. That's wasting their time. They want to get you hired, right? The best thing you should do is always talk through your ideas. So even when you're stuck, explain why you're stuck, because there you're still like spending that time to talk about like time complexity and the algorithms that you do know, and you're still showcasing your knowledge.
Someone asked about recording. Yes, we are recording this session. So we should have this up within the next maybe day or two. Any other questions? Does anyone, I know someone has an interview tomorrow with Amazon. Does anyone else have interviews coming up? Oh, someone asks about DP.
So as far as like DP and like graph theory, any type of graph problems, these are like those kind of leak code hards, which like the problem we were just given, you're usually going to have one or two like hard problems in your interview, but like every interview, you're going to have like one hard problem. So they are the rarer type, but expect to have like one in the course of an entire interview session, as far as your text screen, your on-site, all those different pieces. You'll probably have one of those there. And then looking in the chat here, should we code the brute force method first and try to optimize at the end? I definitely don't think you should do that. It does kind of go by a case-by-case basis, but you want to think about what that time complexity is, right? And then from there, think about what algorithms are going to help with that time complexity. If we're going for a brute force method, then basically we're kind of throwing away our toolbox of algorithms and just saying, what is anything I can do with what's in front of me? And instead, we want to like go from what they're giving us and then think what we can use, because that is a massive hint. The second you try to go for a brute force, you're saying, I have no tools and I'm just going to do the best I can at this point.
And I see a question from Orokita again. I have the phone interview with Amazon tomorrow. What should I do to stand out? That's a really great question. I would definitely say go in prepared with a really solid, strong, tell me about yourself story, right? So essentially what you want to do with the tell me about yourself pitch is show who you are off of your resume, right? The recruiter's already going to have your resume. They're going to see your past experience. They want to learn about what motivates you, what drives you, why engineering, right? What have you been doing lately that can provide value? And remember at the end to always tie it together. You want to say at the end of every response, in conclusion, or ultimately X, Y, and Z are the skills that I can bring to the team at Amazon, right? So really, really want to emphasize the value that you can bring to the company, and also show that you're excited, right? Show that you have the grit and the resilience and the hard work ethic to work at Amazon. So these are some things that can really help you stand out. And we should be wrapping up. Okay, so we have a few more minutes. I hope that this was helpful for you all. For anyone having an interview tomorrow with Amazon, best of luck. Get a good night's rest tonight. Feel good. Have a nice breakfast tomorrow. You got this, right? Remember that you are a problem solver. You're not here begging for a job. You have the skills. You're qualified, right? You are just as qualified as any other engineer. So remember that throughout the interview process. And just remember to always just show your excitement, right? Show that you're happy to be there. Make sure that Amazon feels special, right? Why Amazon? Why do you want to work there, right? Make sure you have a solid answer for that. I don't know if Desmond has any last tips for the technical side,
I think we're good on that. I will put my LinkedIn in the chat so y'all can connect with us if you want.
Yeah, of course. And last but not least, yes, you should definitely highlight some of the leadership principles, Orakita, because at least that shows that you've taken the effort to learn them, right? So definitely highlight some of those. And last but not least, if you want to get more technical practice like this, especially with Desmond or other technical coaches, or if you want more career practice, behavioral mock interview training with our career coaches at Outco, definitely sign up for the program. You will get 4 weeks of solid practice with a bunch of different coaches, and you'll be learning a lot of different skill sets that'll be helpful on your interview process and beyond, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh. And then from there, we have extended support past that, multiple technical sessions every week, and set up like whiteboarding sessions and all the good stuff you guys need until you find a job.
Yeah. Awesome. I saw one last question and I think we're going to head off. So the last question is from Ravi. What's a way to differentiate yourself when answering why Amazon? It feels like there's only so many ways to answer it. Well, I think I want you to think about, what is it exactly about Amazon that you enjoy, right? Besides the good pay and benefits, because I know that's why most people want to go to Amazon. Start thinking about maybe a story that stands out to you. Maybe you really appreciate that they are customer focused. Why does that matter to you, right? Or maybe that you really do appreciate that they have a lot of mentorship opportunities. I think that's something they do have a lot of at Amazon, right? You have the opportunity to work on a really large team where you can learn from a lot of experienced engineers. Maybe that's really important to you. So just try to think of something outside of just, oh, it's a global company, it's the largest e-commerce platform, right? Think of other things that really call to you and draw your attention to work there. Cool. All right. Awesome. I hope that was helpful. And I hope everybody has an amazing evening and that your job search just continues going. And I'm always going to say this, your network is your net worth. So reverse recruiting, really expanding your network and putting yourself out there and reaching out to people, that is going to be your best bet to earning the job that you want. And thank you, Paris, so much for inviting us.
Thank you. This was great. Hope all y'all took away those gems. I know I did. I wrote a lot of that down.
We'll be sharing the slides with Paris, so Paris can send it to all of you, as well as probably the recording. So if for anybody who missed it, they can watch it later or catch up on the slides. But again, we hope to see you at Outco soon, and best of luck on your job search, and keep it going, right? Job search never ends.